Okay, so we're now going to configure and set up identity and use that in place of our quick and easy custom authentication that we added earlier. So what we're going to start with, we're going to take a look at our entities folder and we're going to start with our app user. Now what we need to do in here is for our app user entity, we're going to derive from an identity class, and the one that we're going to derive from is called identity user. And we should be able to bring this in without installing anything because .NET comes with the identity packages. So what we'll use is Microsoft ASPNET Core Identity for this. Now by default, if we hover over this class, this is the default implementation of identity user, which uses a string as a primary key. Now we're going to give this a key of an int so that we don't need to do too much refactoring in our code. And the way that we do that is just specify the type of int inside a type parameter. Now what we do when we use identity, we get a certain number of fields created for us. And if we take a look at the warnings here, then we can see that ID is trying to override the implementation we get from the parent class, so we don't need to specify ID. Also the username property, if you did call username something other than user with a capital N and then name, then you'll have a bit more refactoring to do. This is the reason that I chose to use this earlier, to keep the refactoring at this stage down to an absolute minimum. So what we don't need anymore is any of these top four fields, because the password hash and password salt, albeit identity doesn't use a password sort column, but this is created for us, so we don't need any of these fields anymore. And we'll keep the rest of them just as they are. And I don't need API extensions, so I'm just going to use the light bulb and remove unnecessary usings. So what we're also going to do is we're going to create, and we will have a few errors whilst we're doing this that we'll clean up soon. So I'm going to create a class called app role and press return, and inside this one we're going to derive from the identity role class, and we'll bring in ASP.NET Core Identity, and once again we're going to specify that this is an int, and we don't need any properties inside here at the moment. What we're also going to do, we're going to need to want to get a list of roles that the user's in. Now in order to do this, Identity doesn't provide us with a way to do this out of the box. And this is going to be another many-to-many relationship. Each app user can be in multiple roles, and each role can contain multiple users. So what we'll do, we'll head over to our entities, and what we'll do, we'll create another new class, and we'll call it app user role. And inside here, what we're going to do is we're going to specify the join entities that we need for this. So we're going to have a prop for the app user, and this is going to be a user. And we'll have a prop for the app role, and we'll just call this one role. And then inside our app role, what we're going to do is create a collection inside here, and we'll say public I collection of app user role, and we'll call this user roles. And we'll need to bring in system collection generics for the collection. And what we'll also do is do exactly the same thing in our app user class to complete the relationships that we're going to add for these entities. And we'll add, so I'll just copy this and add it to our app user class and just put it at the bottom and have the same relationship in there. So our app user role is acting as our join table. And what we also need to do with this class is derive from identity user role. And once again, we'll use the int as the type parameter, and we'll need to bring in ASP.NET Core Identity. So what we did by adding these classes and changing a few things inside here, we do have some errors that we need to take a look at. So let's take a look at these. And we've got issues with our account controller because we've got our password sort configuration in there and also in our seed data. So what we'll do, we'll just go to these two classes. And what we'll do for now is we're going to remove anything related to creating a password hash and a salt, because we're going to be using that from identity now. So I'm going to remove the user and password hash setting inside there, and also remove the using statement for var hmac as well. And we'll just do the same in the login method. and we'll remove this, the using statement, and we'll remove all of these lines here, as we're not going to be using these anymore. And that should remove all of the errors inside the account controller. And if we take a look at our remaining errors, then we've got an issue inside our seed class. So let's go here, and what we'll do is we'll just clean up the same thing. We'll remove the creation of the password hash and salt, as we'll be using the identity functionality for this now. So I'll just remove the using for the HMAC SHA-512. Obviously this is not secure, but we're going to be adding identity. And what we should be down to now is 0 errors. So like I said, if you did call your app username something else, then you're going to have more errors to work through based on that. But they're pretty easy to resolve. You'll just need to update the properties now to use the identity username, which is capital U SER capital NAME, and you'll just need to go through and update all of your username properties to use the identity username if you didn't follow my advice at the beginning of this course about using that specific naming convention for username. So now we've got this in place, what we'll do next is take a look at what we need to do in a database context, and we'll look at that next.